I want to argue that learning business will make your life far, far easier. In 2025, where the amount of jobs that are competitive and well paying is lower than ever, where competition is higher than ever before, where people don't know what's going to happen with AI and the economy and a million other things, I think now is the time to understand why business and, frankly, understanding capitalism is more important than ever, especially for young men and women who are in their late teens all the way up to mid 20s and 30s. Now, there are three main points that I do want to break down for you in this video. They all work on top of one another, and I want to leave you with one last piece of advice from my personal experience as to why I believe that if you're going to go into business, you shouldn't expect it to be pretty, you shouldn't expect it to be easy, you shouldn't expect it to be fast, or very nice. Right. And I also want to talk about university and college and the current state of that at the very end. Now, let's dive into it. Number one, when you understand business, you're going to understand individual motivations. You can't sell to anybody, whether it's you yourself as an employee, as an assistant, as a contractor, as whoever you are, without understanding their motivations. It's impossible to sell anything, right? When you go to a job interview, most people naturally ask themselves, what is this employer looking for? Who do I need to show up as to get this job? Who does my future manager want to have in this position? What does that person sound like? What do they look like? How do I make my hair look all good? It's kind of what I'm doing right now as well. Or I'm thinking, what do you want someone who you watch on YouTube to look like? What do you want them to sound like? These are important questions. And when you're in business, it's impossible to get money from investors, from venture capital, from consumers, from businesses, from anybody if you don't understand their motivations. And if you don't understand people's motivations, you definitely can't sell. Right. So for you to actually just practically in the dating market, being, a parent, being whatever else you are in life, if you understand people's motivations, it makes it much easier to sell. Sorry, my hair is a little bit messed up right now. It looks funny. There we go. Number two is you learn how to position yourself to both be valuable, which is most important. But secondly, I'd argue sometimes it's even more important is to be perceived as valuable. Look at a lot of the guys that you may watch on YouTube. You may not watch them as well, but guys who flex with, amazing cars and watches and money and fame and then. I mean, those guys have learned how to be perceived as successful, and how to be perceived as competent. Right? I think the normal person sees a Rolls Royce and they see the GT3 RS and the Audemars and they see the travel and all this stuff. And it's very hard to not correlate this person enjoying this lifestyle with success. And by extension, if this person has the success, they did something to get it, right? So if they're selling you a course or a mentorship or this or that, then they're doing it because, they, you can see that they're so successful. They probably know a thing or two about it. That's what happens in your subconscious mind. That's why you give this person a chance. You hope they're telling the truth. In reality, these people are oftentimes selling you a dream. They are not actually going to teach you anything that valuable. And if this person did what they talked about, they wouldn't really be, showing off that much. Don't get me wrong. I think making vlogs and showing lifestyle is important. There's a place and time and place for that. Something I want to do in the future. However, I do just want to make clear that that is all about perception. It's not really about value. They're not teaching you how to make more money. The point of those videos is to have people believe that you are competent. Once again, if you want to sell yourself, it's very, very, very important. You need to be perceived as an expert, as competent, as an authority, so on and so forth. If you don't get perceived that way, it doesn't matter how good you are. I like to say this to my prospects. If you have the cure to cancer, but nobody knows or believes that you have it, it is as good as not having it. Right? So that's number two. And number three is going to be you have an edge over people who rely on businesses because they're not self-sufficient. They're just employees. They're 9 to 5ers, right? They don't have two very important things. The third one's mobility, right? They can't move around. There's not much choice or freedom. But the two things are time, and they don't have scalability in time or in skill. They have a cap on how good they get. A business doesn't typically need 30 CEOs. They need one. So no matter whether or not they can have 30 more employees get as good as a CEO, they don't need it. They're better off keeping you as a C-suite executive. And they don't need hundreds of C-suite executives. They need 15 or 30, right? So they're not going to go ahead and promote anybody. And in terms of managers, they may need 30, 40 for a large company. They don't need hundreds. So you're going to remain as a worker, not a manager. I hope you guys understand, but that's how it works, right? People don't actually need that many employees or someone who's high paid. And you have to hustle and struggle and work for years and years and years until finally, if God wills it, you get an opportunity to get promoted. When you run your own business, you have full control over how much time you invest into your business, and it's all yours, right? Or at least you have part ownership, which means no one's going to tell you, nope, this is your 40-hour work week, 45, you're done, that's it. You don't have any overtime available. Nope, you have overtime available every single second that you are living and breathing and walking this earth. And number two, even more importantly, is skill, right? I guess I touched on it there, but no one needs 30 CEOs, right? But if you can develop the skill set of a CEO in your own business, no one's going to stop you. That is the thing. You can continue to get better and better and better and better at what you do, what you sell, who you are, what kind of service or product you provide for people, and the value can go up, right? This is very tied to number two, where you need to be perceived as someone who is competent, because if you don't have that perception, you can't charge a lot or you can't charge any good pricing for what you sell, even if it is good. So perception is incredibly key. But yeah, number three, like you can actually go ahead and back up that perception as someone who is competent, who has a great product or a service by actually developing your skills and having a great product and a service. That's why when I do sales coaching, I'm so passionate about it and I have no imposter syndrome because I know I've spent like thousands of hours at this point, right, actually developing the skill. So that's kind of point number three. And to sum it up, really, all it is when you learn business, it makes life easier. Why? Because you understand individual motivations, which makes it easier to sell yourself. You learn how to create a perception of yourself as valuable, and it makes it important for you, of course, to be valuable, but perception is very important. And number three, you actually have leverage in terms of time and skill. The very last point that I already alluded to, and this really wraps everything up, is business is not nice, it's not easy, it's not fast, it's not pretty. Also, one of the dumbest things that you can do, in my personal opinion, is learn something like business from the outside. I got in a relationship with my girlfriend because I knew I was going to develop the skill set and the knowledge and the ability to be a good boyfriend and future father or husband by actually being in a relationship, not from reading 1,000 books. And I can tell you that's true because I read a lot of books on relationships, and so many things turned out to be completely different when I actually got in one. There were brand new things I was learning, and I learned about nuance and specific scenarios and this and that. That is why you can't just simply expect for there to be one right way. So if you go to school or college or university to learn business, do you understand that you're most likely not going to be learning something that is accurate? It's going to be a model, it's going to be a simulation, it's going to be a hallucination, frankly, at this point of what real business is. The way to learn something for real is to do it for real. You can't learn for real by doing something that's not real, by doing the fake version of it. And that's what school and university as a whole is. So if you're gonna learn business, get ready for something tough and competitive and brutal, and go and learn it from the inside. That's really all I can say. If you want to start to learn sales, the most fundamental skill in all of business, no matter who you are, what you sell, where you are in the world, it's all the same. Join the Discord, closer corner below. It's an amazing Discord where you learn not only start to finish what sales is. Like I have an entire course breaking down how to have a sales conversation, right? That's completely free. You can network with other guys. You can start to role play with them. I have a leaderboard in there where if you become number one for role play sessions within the Discord, you go ahead and have a free 1 hour session with myself or one of our other coaches. And if you want to work with myself one on one, just fill out the type form below. It's totally free. You and I will jump on a call and we'll talk about whether or not you actually need any kind of coaching. And if you do, we'll talk about like what that may or may not look like in the future. But that's it, guys. Thanks so much for watching. This is why learning business, sales, marketing will make your life that much easier. And it's the most logical thing to do in 2025. All right, guys, catch you in the next one. Peace.